All right, so we're going to talk about the bureaucracy, uh, the element of government that we love to hate and hate to love as we should. So, just some fun cartoons illustrating some of the, you know, side effects of bureaucracy. Lots of offices, lots of divisions, lots of chairs of this and chairs of that, lots of paperwork. That is what they're known for. Okay. But since they've evolved over time, we've gone from the spoils system, which if you took a push, hopefully you know about, right? The idea that if you voted for me, I'm going to give you a little job. So Andrew Jackson was the master of it all, and so was Boss Tweed out in New York. But the idea is that jobs are given for political reasons, right? That is the spoils system. That's the patronage system. But then in 1883, we're going to get something called the Pendleton Civil Service Act, which basically is the beginning of a creation of a merit-based civil service. We're not there yet, folks, in 1883, but we're going to get there pretty soon. So as of today, currently, you do have to have some experience, you have to have some knowledge, you have to have some background in the department you're being sent to and employed in, unless you're being nominated to a cabinet position. And then you could just be anybody that the president knows. All right, so let's look at the civil service system. This is a system of hiring and promoting, right? The idea is that it is nonpartisan. So when a new president comes in representing a different party, you are not going to be out of a job, okay? The merit principle is the idea that there are exams that you do have to take, right? And promotion ratings. So you do get reviewed, all right? And promotions are based on skill and talent, not just who you know and who you donate money to. Okay, so cabinet departments. All right, there's 15 cabinet departments, right, in the executive branch. Each one has its own budget, its own staff, and its own policy areas. Okay, this is a huge thing, which just expands government. And typically, Republicans are not fond of big government, so they often try to eliminate some of these departments. All right, there's this thing called a regulatory agency. This is basically where Congress gives this agency general responsibility and rule-making authority, such as FDA, USDA, CDC, APHIS, GIPSA, okay, all of these different groups. These agencies, all right, write regulations, all right, they look at disputes amongst different parties. They serve a huge purpose inside of all of the bureaucratic system. When it comes to regulation, okay, regulation is basically the use of their authority within the government as an entity of the government to control or change some practice in the private sector. Okay, they check, they verify, they inspect lots of products and services that we take it granted for, right? Like our water, all right, our furniture, our food, our flooring, our paint, all of these different things, okay, are regulated. And I certainly appreciate it. I like to eat safe food and not have paint that will cause cancer in my house. So, not horrible what their job is. Okay. The next job of bureaucracy is to implement, right? So, this is you write regulations, then you coordinate the resources to achieve those goals. Okay. And then you get feedback and you revise regulations. Is it completely unfeasible? Did we actually create more hardship with these regulations? Okay, and then maybe we need to revise. So let's look at why some policies fail. Okay, maybe they were just poorly designed programs. That definitely happens. We're human, we make mistakes, and sometimes we just don't design things well. Maybe there's a lack of clarity. Remember, Congress comes up with these laws, okay? They pass them. Sometimes in a hurried fashion, sometimes not. And then it's given over to bureaucracy to figure out, well, now go implement it, make it happen. Well, they have to read through that and figure out, well, this makes no sense. How are we supposed to do it? Or, oh, I see we're following this path, so this is what we need to do to make it happen, okay? So, like I said, they're imprecise sometimes. Maybe sometimes these laws conflict with others that have already been passed, okay? So the bureaucracy has to look at this and be like, what am I doing? Now I have two totally different laws on the same thing. I don't know. Okay, so they have to sort through that. That's their job. Okay, lacking clarity, right? Title IX is a great thing that prohibits sex-based discrimination in school and educational programs. and it's since expanded, right? It covers athletics. Now it covers sexual harassment, sexual abuse. So it just keeps growing because it's a general statement that people are challenging that it should encompass all of these other things, okay? Maybe there's a lack of resources, all right? I mean, money doesn't grow on trees. We only have a certain amount in our budget, okay? So if their budget is cut in a certain area, it can make it difficult for an agency to fulfill the goal that's been given to them through a law passed by Congress. So we might have problems with some aspects of bureaucracy. Arguably, mostly it's usually state bureaucracy, but they have a big job to do. And then oftentimes we love to cut budgets, right? Because military needs our budget, Social Security needs our budget on the federal level. So some of these other little departments, they get cut. And then they're told, hey, but still make this stuff work. So sometimes it doesn't pass. It just kind of fails and it dies, okay? Some other reasons, administrative discretion, right? You can ignore certain portions of a policy because, I mean, you're a bureaucracy. You're the one enforcing it. So maybe there's parts that you're like, what? No, we're just not going to do that. Especially at the street level, right? Bureaucracies have the most discretion. So the ones actually making this work, maybe it's a headache they don't want to deal with, right? Maybe that car that just ran the red light doesn't serve the cop to pull them over and give them a ticket because they got other things to do. There's also fragmentation, right? The idea is that some policies spread among several agencies. So, well, that agency will handle it. And then that agency's thinking, this other agency is going to handle it. And then at the end, nobody's handling it. So the policy fails. Okay, so let's look at why sometimes policies really do succeed. Okay, so the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it was clear, it was concise, it had a goal, right? It was to increase registration and turnout rates among African Americans. The implementation was clear. It sent federal marshals to the South and said, this will be happening. This is how you're going to do it, and we will oversee it. Okay, so it was a federal mandate put on the states that practiced Jim Crow and segregation and voter suppression. All right. And so this was a success. This was a successful policy, arguably, though, until 2013. So 2013, there's a court case that went to the Supreme Court, Shelby County versus Holder. And in a 5-4 decision, the majority stated that states can change election laws without federal approval now, which meant that, right, we can go back to redistricting so that minorities are all in one single district. And so therefore, right, you don't really have to listen to them because they're only in that one district. Voter ID laws were put into play, which can sometimes restrict people and their ability to vote because not everybody has a ID because they don't necessarily drive. They take public transportation. They do things like that. Also, they would restrict early voting now, and absentee ballots are harder and harder to get in a lot of these states, which, if you look at them, are southern states, which, if you think about history, are the ones that still like Jim Crow. So maybe the Voting Rights Act was successful as a policy that bureaucracy was looking at, but an overall emptied out and gutted policy now due to the Supreme Court case. Okay. All right. So deregulation, let's look at that. This is really important. It's the idea that we're going to lift restrictions on businesses and industries. Okay. We're no longer going to keep an eye on everything. If you paid attention to current events, right? Boeing had a little issue with a jet that kept crashing. And it's because the bureaucracy said, oh, you guys can just confirm that your plane is safe and put it on out there. We're not going to do it anymore. And so the FAA did not actually go and look at the jet. And so Boeing said, yeah, it's a thumbs up. And then they had 3 plane crashes. So deregulation. But there's also problems with strict regulation, right? Because it increases prices. It hurts US's competitive position. And they're not always effective. So, a balance maybe needs to be found there. Iron triangles. Okay. So this is a fun one. All right, this is basically the idea that there's a mutually beneficial relationship between bureaucracy, interest groups, and congressional committees. Okay? Bureaucracy, interest groups, congressional committees. All right, so each one of these people is going to do a little favor for the other person to get a benefit from that group. All right, so keep that in mind. Some argue we're less iron triangle today and we're more issue networks. So there's more people about an issue being involved here. So what that means is that instead of just interest groups, it's a whole bunch of issues, people standing on all sides of them, all right, feeding into the bureaucracy, all right, and the congressional committees. So the idea would be that, let's say the VA, so Veterans Affairs, wants more healthcare coverage. So they're going to go to Congress to ask for this, all right, and the bureaucracy to help push for it. Okay, bureaucracy is going to say, yeah, we can totally manage this. Congress is going to say, well, maybe if you support me in my next reelection bid, I can get this done. The Veterans Association says, got you. So basically, they're going to get better health coverage in a perfect world, right? Bureaucracy is going to make sure that that actually happens, okay? And all these different veterans groups are going to support the committee that helped get this legislation passed. So iron triangle. Now would be a little bit more issue-based. So it wouldn't just be veterans looking to push for better healthcare. Maybe it would be minority groups pushing for better healthcare. Maybe it would be healthcare workers pushing for better healthcare. So more people are kind of coming into the mix with more issues. Okay. All right. So this is just what I explained, right? The idea is that the interest groups, right, lobby Congress for something. Congress says, well, okay, we'll do this, but bureaucracy, you handle it. Bureaucracy says, yeah, I got it. All right. And so we have the triangle. All right. So, that's bureaucracy, sort of, in a nutshell, of gray haze. So be sure you update your vocabulary. Definitely know issue networks in the iron triangle. Understand how policies can be successful and how they can actually fail. Okay. And until next time.